So my dominant function is FI, so basically I'm always kind of thinking about, well, I like this, I don't like that, this went badly, this went well. So yeah, like, so I kind of, sometimes I even kind of wake up irritated in the morning, which is kind of frustrating, but I like it too because it's a part of who I am, and I just would never want to change that. And it's like this really kind of very specific, almost like sandpapery irritation that's just kind of, well, excruciating for lack of a better term, but then again, like, not like in a feel bad for me kind of way or anything like that, but just kind of a fact about myself. One of my favorite feelings though is the feeling of keeping a secret, like the feeling of secretly liking a fictional character, or the idea of fantasizing about somebody finding out and that sort of thing, like just the feeling of keeping secrets and privacy and stuff like that, because I think the thought of revealing something personal about myself in some cases and like fantasizing about that is I think I kind of like it in the way that some people like roller coasters or haunted houses or something like that, because it's like a little bit of a scary thing, and I think that actually is kind of what amuses me about it. So there's that. And as for SI, like, I just think I find it very amazing and poetic, like for me or for anybody, just to think of analogies for things. Like, for example, like when I see like little sort of like islands of land in the middle of a street, I think, oh, well, it's kind of like an airport layover, because you're going one part of the journey across part of the street to the landing, so that would be like your intermediate airport, and then you're taking another leg of the journey to the other side of the street. So it's like symbolically like having two legs of the journey, like when you have when you're going someplace and you stop at an airport part way, it's kind of also like having two legs of the journey. So I just like to draw those kinds of analogies a lot. I just think that that's really fun and enjoyable, and definitely something that I'll continue to do. I think it also helps with my writing as well, like with poetry in particular. I know I say this all the time, but I love poetry. It's one of my favorite forms of creativity, and I would even say it's one of my main ways of expressing myself more than anything else. So, and I think that being able to be so attuned to how I feel personally really helps me to get into the raw emotion that you need for poetry. And I also kind of have a saying where like that hinders me as well, because that makes me more embarrassed to share it. But yet, what I need is that really embarrassing personal material to do a good job with the writing. But then the flip side of that is, well, then I'm not sure I want to share it because it's so personal. So there's kind of like a trade-off. Well, I kind of went over that a little bit already so far. So I also think it brings me contentment because it gives me like a sense of identity, to identify as an introverted feeler dominant. I just wouldn't be me any other way. Like, I just like having kind of that label, and that not only that sense of identity, but that sense of community, and maybe hearing from other introverted feelers as well. That's always fun, and seeing what their experiences are. So that definitely brings me contentment. And I don't know why I like it, I just like it. And another thing, well, it also, the FI-SI combination I think also hinders me a little bit when I think back to like past hurts and past misunderstandings and all of that. And like sometimes if I think back to an embarrassing moment, I'll do like a little cringe. I'll sometimes think back to like a time when I was an undergrad and was taking a calculus class and was talking to the professor about how like sometimes I'll make a mistake on the exam because I get nervous, and sometimes like I'm embarrassed about maybe how I said it in that conversation. So sometimes when I think about it, I'll almost physically do like a little cringe. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. For one thing, if something's really important to me, I'll obviously be driven to do it. So there's always that. One other way that it hinders my discipline is that sometimes if I'm really distracted with something that's maybe more personally important to me than a task at hand, I'll have trouble focusing on the task at hand because I'm so distracted with this other thing that I really care about and need to address and think about. So I think that definitely, I think, sometimes hinders me with my academics in particular, especially because they're so technical with things like science and coding. So when I have like a science or coding task to do, and I'm distracted with maybe how I feel about something personal, like maybe with how I feel about a type result that I've gotten in the past, and how upset I might be or happy I might be about that, then that may distract me from other things. And well, not always, but sometimes, and that's not always such a good thing. That's just one example. And I think it also hinders me because it causes me to take a lot of things very personally. Like, I'll read personal significance into things. Like, for example, when I was younger and I used to sometimes get handed a kid's menu at a restaurant, like, I would read a lot of personal significance into that. Like, like this person doesn't know where I'm at in life, or how old or mature I am, or doesn't have any regard for the amount of years and life experience that I have, by thinking that I'm a kid. Like, to me, like, it's not like just a surface level, quick sort of absent-minded mistake that somebody made. It feels like it has a deeper significance as to what they think about me and where I'm at in my life and my journey. So there's those kinds of things as well. It's also really hurtful, like, when anybody criticizes any social mistakes that I might make or anything like that. It can feel like an attack on my character. Like, if somebody says, like, I don't know, like, chew with your mouth closed or something like that, I might think, like, that's, like, this person thinks that they're above me and can tell me what to do, or like I'm such a weird person for not thinking to chew with my mouth closed, or I don't know, that's just kind of a silly example. That's the type of idea. So sometimes I'll start by saying it's like the part of me that kind of sees more the what could be, or what could be present, instead of necessarily focusing on the immediate physical, every immediate physical detail of my atmosphere. Like, once I was taking a walk in the evening, and I was walking down this dark path, kind of along the way to get back to my house, and I was thinking, just kind of out of nowhere, like, this could be the path of, like, somebody suddenly secretly giving birth in the middle of the night in the dark on this random path out of nowhere, even though there's no practical immediate reason for me to be thinking that would happen or did happen. Like, I don't care. I just like the idea. So who cares if it has a practical application? It's like, wouldn't it be weird if this hypothetical thing happened where somebody was, I don't know, like, secretly pregnant or something and had to give birth suddenly in the middle of this path on the way back to their house, the way I was walking on the way back to my house. Well, obviously that didn't happen, but I just think it would be weird if it did. So it's kind of like that. Well, what could be, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Or I might be somewhere and think, or might be like in an academic building somewhere and think, like, wouldn't it be weird if you had, like, your own little apartment in this building and you were the only one that lived there? What if you lived in a building that was an otherwise non-residential building? I'm not quite entirely sure I would like that, but again, who cares? It's just kind of an interesting idea to entertain. TE, sometimes I do struggle with that. Like, I don't really quite relate to, like, the whole efficiency idea necessarily. Like, I might not always know the most efficient way of doing something and getting something done in a timely way. Like, in the morning, I like to listen to something as I'm getting ready, but I used to listen to it and then get ready, but it took a little while for me to think, well, it'd be a lot more efficient to listen to this and finish it as I'm getting ready. That would save time, that kind of thing. I would say that maybe that hinders my discipline, because I don't always necessarily have the drive to just actually physically just go ahead and get something done. Like, if I want to make a new video for my channel or something like that, I might have the time to do it, but don't always necessarily realize that I do, and then I just end up being like, oh, well, I guess I don't have to do it today, and then more days go by that I think I don't have to do it today, and then it ends up not getting done necessarily when I would like it to. So FE, I'm gonna be honest, I don't quite 100% understand this function and how it works. I mean, like, I know it's kind of the process of being more directly attuned to the external social and emotional atmosphere instead of directly attuned to myself. So, like, Like, in other words, like, I would say that sometimes, like, if somebody tells a joke and they're trying to be funny, I don't always immediately realize that they're trying to be funny and that they want me to laugh. Like, it has to first pass through a filter of, well, do I think this is funny? And then I might not, like I don't kind of, like, I guess immediately absorb that need directly to laugh just because that's how the person wants me to respond. And sometimes that might be misinterpreted as me not being happy or being offended or something, even when I'm not. So that is kind of one thing I would say that maybe hinders me in. Another thing is, like, I don't always quite, like, understand this whole need to, like, go to somebody when you're, like, upset or whatever. Like, if I'm really upset about something, I a lot of times just want to be by myself to process it. Like, I don't like being told to talk about it or, like, having somebody even necessarily know that I'm upset. Like, I like to get to choose who knows what about me. Like, I don't like it when people say, like, tell me what's wrong, or, like, I know something's bothering you, when I don't necessarily want them to know, because I don't like that they're trying to process it for me or with me, even though they might trying to be helpful, but it's really not helpful, because it feels like they're saying, like, oh, you have this, it's like saying, oh, well, you're eating, well, why don't I chew that food for you? Like, it makes about as much sense to me as that, even though, I mean, like, I do like people, like, it's nothing personal against anybody, it's just I don't need that external emotional support when I'm upset about something, I guess is what I'm trying to say, no matter how I feel about the person. Like, it's not that I think they're not caring enough or nice enough or anything like that. No, it's not that at all. It's just how I am. And I guess it hinders me because I don't always necessarily, like, do a good enough job also of conveying, like, how much people mean to me. Like, a lot of times, like, if I like people, like, I just know intrinsically that I like them and value them, and I might forget to actually outwardly verbalize that to them so that they know. Like, it's kind of like I experience it as being self-evident. And that happens with, like, friends from the church, that sort of thing. So with SE, like, I mean, I do kind of like certain physical things in my atmosphere, but I don't always really quite hyper focus on the details of it, though. Like, I just find, like, a lot of times, like, I'll be looking around and I'll just kind of be taking most in my environment mostly just kind of as a whole, rather than, like, the individual pieces exactly as they are in a whole lot of concrete detail. But I mean, I do get some enjoyment out of those kinds of things. With an I mean, I actually do have maybe a little bit of development of this. Like, I mean, like, I might get attached to, like, having a certain identity for myself or a vision for myself or something that I might want to make happen. Like, for example, like I was really attached to going into astronomy, for example, and making that something that I would like to see myself be, and like to see myself be passionate about. So those kinds of things somewhat, though I don't necessarily relate to the whole idea of, like, relying or depending on an I to experience my feelings, though. I feel like I do still experience them in a pretty specific way. Like, for example, like, going back to that idea I alluded to a little bit before, like the feeling of liking a fictional character, like, that's kind of a very specific sort of type of joy. It's like if funniness had a cousin, this would be it. But to me, that feels like kind of more of maybe like a little bit of an SI way of describing it, if I had to guess. Not really quite so much NI. TI, I'm honestly not entirely sure. I mean, I imagine I probably tap into TI sometimes, like when I'm doing like a technical problem, like math or science or something. I mean, I feel like there has to be at least a certain amount of TI in that. But I wouldn't say but I would say I have to first kind of pass through either TE or FI maybe to get to it. Like, for example, I was kind of doing this experiment on myself where I would write a poem and I would try to make it as if like an INTP, for example, wrote it, who's a TI dominant, and then put it into a Myers-Briggs text analyzer, but it would still keep coming out INFP because I'm really an FI dominant, not a TI dominant. And I think that may demonstrate that FI is a gateway for me, as cognitive personality theory would put it. Like, in other words, it's hard for me to just go directly to TE when I'm trying to. I have to go through FI to do that, and I think that experiment demonstrates that. It was so much easier for me to write a poem and have it come out FI dominant than TI dominant, I would say. And I think that's, like I said, an example of my FI being a gateway. Well, it has been kind of helpful, like finding something like cognitive personality theory that allows for things like gateways and access to functions that conventional Myers-Briggs doesn't necessarily even have directly in the stack. So I found it useful to think, well, okay, so I have FI, I have some degree of NE and SI, I have oppositional TE, but hey, maybe I can pass through those to access some NI, SE, maybe even FE and TI if I wanted. And I don't think I would have found that if I stuck to only studying conventional Myers-Briggs. So I would say that that's kind of been helpful just to know, just for the sake of knowing that I'm a complete person, if that makes sense. So I think that is about all I'll share for today. So thank you very much for watching and having me.